people want to start to grow their own vegetables for various reasons, for the price of them, for the healthiness, and for all sorts of positive attributes. It makes sense, if you've got space, to grow your own vegetables. Now maybe there's an area in your garden that's overgrown, or maybe you don't do very much with. And if that is the case, it might be a good idea to think about converting that garden to a place where you can grow vegetables. And in this video I'll be showing you some simple steps about what you can do to make these types of spaces productive in your garden or in your allotment. Now, as you can see, like many gardens, my garden is multifunctional. That means that the grass area, for example, I'm not going to touch because I have young grandchildren and they love playing in the area. So certain areas you want to keep as they are. But as we go towards the rear of the garden, there's two areas which I've never really utilised. You can see the area here with the two conifer trees in, and there's a little bit of a narrow piece just here with a dead tree which is going to come out. And if I just scroll round to this other area over here, which is a slightly larger area, you can see here completely overgrown and right the way back to the hedges. So we're not talking about massive areas, and these areas will look a lot bigger when I've cleared them, but these are the areas I'm planning to use to grow vegetables over the coming years. Now, those of you that are regulars to my channel will know that previously I've had quite a large vegetable allotment, and previous videos that I've produced show you the size of that allotment and how I produce my vegetables. But now I'm going to condense my vegetable growing into a much smaller area, as you've just seen. And that's going to create its challenges to make that area as productive as possible. But anybody can do this. So the journey that I'm about to take is one that you could follow if you want to grow vegetables, maybe for the first time, or maybe in an area of your garden which you thought you could not grow vegetables in before. Now, the first thing to consider is how much space have you actually got available. Now, if you look at this bed over here on the right hand side of the two beds that I've selected, you can see a reasonable size, although small, area with two conifer trees in it, and then a narrow area over here with a dead tree. So what I'm looking at now before I start is that tree is completely dead, so it needs to come out. So I'm going to cut that out completely and clear the ground just below it, and these two conifers also will come out. That will create a lot more space for me for various reasons. Now, I've just moved over to the second area on the left hand side, and this area goes from the edge of the grass right through to the laurel hedge at the back, pretty much to the compost bin and back. But I'm also looking at maybe there's a little bit of an area here I can clear just to give me a little more space. So the first thing you need to do really is ask yourself, how much space do you need, or how much space have you got available in most cases to grow? And once this is all cleared, this will look much bigger. Doesn't look very much at the moment, but once I've cleared it, it will. Now, another consideration is the amount of light. Now, although some vegetables will grow quite happily in shade or in some shade, the reality is that most vegetables do require or like a certain amount of sunshine. So another advantage of taking these two conifers down, it's also going to allow a lot more light in this area here. Now, when spring starts to go into full force and the leaves start to come back on the hedges, there'll be a lot more growth in this garden. I've got to be mindful of how much shade will hit these areas. If I go back to the left hand side here, you can see the laurel hedge at the back, which is quite dense, so there's not going to be an awful lot of light coming in that direction. And also this hedge here will also fill up with green leaves, and that means this area here at certain times of day is going to get a lot of shade, so I'm going to have to be mindful of that in the way I plant my vegetables. It's also worth investigating the direction of the sun as well, so you'll know at what point in the day you're going to get sunshine in certain areas. So I know by using a compass that north, for example, is over in that direction over there, which means south is over there. So the sun, which rises in the east and sets in the west on a trajectory, is going to start over here and then move its way during the day over to the west, and that tells me that I am going to get sunshine in these two areas that I've selected for certain periods of time, but not all through the day. That's going to help me to know what type of vegetables I'm going to plant in various locations, because obviously the sun loving ones I want to put into the areas that are going to get the most sun, and the ones that are able and capable of growing more happily in the shade can go in those areas that get less sun. So all you need to do is get a compass just to see where north, south, east and west is, and that'll allow you to track the direction of the sun, just to help you in your decision making in relation to where vegetables are going to be planted. Now, another consideration is the type of soil that you're going to propose to plant your vegetables into. Now this area here looks really overgrown, but what you're looking at there, those dead plants, were petunias that were planted here last year, so they were flowers, and they're pretty shallow roots. So these will pull out really quickly, but as I go towards the back of this bed, you'll notice that I've got the laurel hedging, and that could have and will have pretty sturdy roots. So I'm thinking here of using the possibility of a no-dig method, where I'll cover most of the area in cardboard and then put compost on top and let it grow, rather than try and dig into the ground and try and battle with the roots that are already there, particularly from the hedge. That will give my vegetables a much better chance of growing if I'm putting fresh compost on top. In the other area, I may just try planting directly into the ground, but it may depend on how much success I have on getting the roots out for the conifers, which I think should be okay. But I'm going to try an experiment with no dig on the left hand side, and I think I might try traditional planting on the right hand side and see how that goes. Over time, depending on how the vegetables grow, I may change my mind, just adapt depending upon which method is most successful. Now, if you've got limited space to grow vegetables like this, then you want to make the areas as productive as possible. And one way to do that, and which I'm also going to demonstrate, is something called vertical vegetable growing. So if you've got limited ground on the actual ground itself, it makes sense to also grow vegetables that are going to grow in an upward direction. So that'll be things like beans, peas. And those of you who have watched my previous videos before will know that I grow things like cucumbers and squashes vertically to get them off the ground. So those are the types of things I'll be looking to utilise here in these areas. Something else I'll definitely be doing to maximise the amount of vegetables I can grow is to grow vegetables in pots. Now in those areas that I've just demonstrated, they're pretty small, so growing crops that take up a lot of space, particularly things like potatoes, is not going to be really suitable for that type of area. So I've recently purchased 12 30-litre pots, and I'm going to grow my potatoes in those pots, and I'll talk about the advantages of that in another video when I plant them and show you exactly how I do it. I also may grow other vegetables in pots, such as my tomatoes and maybe some soft fruit, but I haven't really decided yet. And the beauty of growing things in pots is that you can move them around. So if I plant my potatoes in April and we have a late frost, I can easily move them inside if I know there's going to be a frost, and that'll protect them. But I will talk about that in a different video. So there you can see the areas I've got to grow in now are much smaller than I've had before, but the techniques I'm going to use are suitable for small areas or large areas. So if you have got a larger garden and you have got a large allotment, everything I show in future videos is going to be perfectly suitable and appropriate for you. But the difference is, if you've got a large area, you can just grow more vegetables. You may even have smaller areas than me. In fact, some people might not have gardens at all, and therefore you might get some benefit by looking at how I grow vegetables in pots. So I'm really looking forward to this journey and showing you how I get on, and also how I respond to the challenge of growing vegetables in a much smaller area to make them as productive as possible, and I hope you enjoy it too. So I really hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to subscribe to the channel for future videos on how to sow and grow fruit and veg and one or two recipe ideas, don't forget to press the subscribe button. And I'll see you all on the next video.